Hi, happy Sunday, Studio Sunday. And today I'm going to be working on my Fools with Tools treasure trade. Where I left off yesterday was I had just decided what materials and different sizes of things I was going to use to construct the actual tools. And so I put this pattern that is free available on his website. That's in the link of the YouTube video where he makes these clamps. I followed the link and went to his website, and in the posting you can download this for free and print it out, and he encourages people like me to make our own versions. And so I'm just going to be making mine out of sheet 18 gauge nickel. And instead of using wooden dowels to hold the thing together and have it glued in place, I'm going to make my own little bedazzled nuts and bolts. And so after I figured out what I was going to use for the different materials, I knew, okay, typically when I'm making tools like this, there'll be one component that pretty much dictates the sizes of everything else, because everything else is kind of shrunk to scale or within proportion to that one thing. And so the part that the whole size of everything is hinged on is the fact that these holes, instead of using the wooden dowels, I'm going to use a tube that the outer diameter of the tube is 2.5 millimeters. And so I took this and then I put it in Photoshop and then scaled it down. So now this is the size. So they're not the smallest that I could possibly make them. I don't even know. I guess some people would call them small. They're smaller. Let's just say they're smaller than the ones that John made. And that's okay. I don't want making these things small to be something that makes it a pain in the butt for me to do. I want to enjoy making this project. And so this is just the size that I've decided is small enough. We don't have to make it as small as humanly possible. Yeah, I've got some nickel sheet and I'm just going to cut these out and then rubber cement them onto my nickel sheet and then start cutting them out. So let's get to work.
All right, getting to work. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just drawing pencil lines. I'm going to cut the patterns out of the larger piece of paper, and then using the rubber cement, I'll glue the patterns onto the nickel sheet so that I can cut it out. I'm just lining up to make sure that it's going to fit on the nickel sheet that I've picked out. And there I have my rubber cement. And I'm putting a thin coat of rubber cement on both pieces of sheet nickel. And then for the paper side, I actually put them on a scrap sheet of computer paper. And then this way, when I'm putting the rubber cement on the actual pattern, I can go off of the edges onto the computer paper. Like I don't have to avoid the edges. I can just go right over the edges onto the paper. Then you get to watch me watch the glue dry. Just making sure all the cameras are still recording. All right, now that the glue is sufficiently dry from both sides, then I'm just putting the paper onto the metal. So in the patterns, there are a bunch of holes that I need to drill out, and also I need to drill a little access hole for some small cavities that I have to pierce out. So I'm just using my chasing hammer and a nice little scribe. So now I'm choosing what drill bit I'm going to use in the holes. I want them to be big enough that I can get the saw blade in, and also big enough that I can use the holes to line up the actual parts to do the final finish of the edges and make sure that they match up accordingly. but I don't want them so big that if they're slightly off, it's going to get in my way. Like I want to be able to line up the smaller holes and then glue them together. Well, you'll see that. It's coming up. It's coming up. Sit tight. All right, now the whole production has to move over to the drill press set. It's interesting. I have such a small studio, which I love. It's fine that it's small, but there's so much that goes into like moving the production from, where I'm at to the next area, which is, sometimes it's soldering and sometimes it's being at the pickle pot. And this one just happens to be, when I get a drill with the drill press. Just going to town, drilling all these holes. And then half the battle is remembering to put the drill bit back into the drill index so that the next time you need that specific drill bit size, it's in the index. All right, so all the drilling is done. So now I got to move back over to the bench. So moving all my cameras. Yeah, that tripod on wheels thing is it just helps so much to just be able to take the tripod and roll it around instead of having to move all the individual legs, I guess. All right, so now I think I'm showing how all of the holes that I drilled have left burrs on the underside of my metal. And so I'm using a larger drill bit to kind of twist off the little burr that's left by the smaller drill bit. And this is pretty common. I move the camera to the side so I can just actually do the rest of them without worrying about the camera. All right, so now I think I'm getting ready to saw out the pieces. And so I have that iPhone way up in the corner over my left shoulder because I want to get some good footage down from kind of like the top down at this angle. So there were some pieces that I had to extend the little tail because it didn't fit on, I guess, the printout that was downloadable, and there was a little note on it that said extended a certain amount. And so I just used a scribe and metal ruler to extend it, and then I used a Sharpie to make sure that it was really obviously visible. But the scribe mark will stay there if I end up accidentally rubbing off the Sharpie. So that's why I marked it with both of them. All right, and then so now I'm sawing, and I was timing myself to see how long it would take me to cut out an entire kind of card of them, the entire card of different parts and components. So it started off really well, and I've got my little cut lube there, keeping my blade nice and fresh and lubricated. So the first thing I did is I cut off the main bulk of that extra sheet of metal, and then I'm kind of just trying to keep it, the bigger the piece, the bigger the sheet is, the actually less I'm likely to break my blade. But this was the interesting thing. See, now you see I broke it, so now I'm putting a new saw blade on there. I started off really strong, going pretty long without having to change the saw blade, and then it was almost like I had, well, this is going to sound like an excuse, but this does happen though. It was almost like I got a bad batch of a dozen saw blades. It seemed like I would just take a few strokes and then the saw blade would break. But I also think that I was rushing. Let's be completely honest. I was trying to be impressive and saw out all these pieces because I kind of feel like, anybody commenting might say, well, why wouldn't you use Click Spring? He's got a little skills. I don't think it's called what is that called? A reciprocating saw? Is it a jigsaw? A skill saw? I'm not sure exactly, but I have one. I just have never really put my saw blades on it because I'm so proficient at sawing out by hand. it's also kind of like enjoyable too. It's like those woodworkers that don't use any power tools. They just do everything by hand because they like it that way. You know, there's something that's kind of nostalgic to me about hand sawing out. And also I can use smaller saw blades and get closer to the final size that I'm going for. Another thing you might find interesting is every once in a while I'll get a comment from somebody on the public, comment section on YouTube saying, all right, little girl, make sure that you're using the entire saw blade, because if not, then the center of the saw blade is going to get dull. But I should show you a close-up sometime. The saw blades that come for these handheld jeweler saw frames, the whole blade isn't actually teeth. There's maybe 1.25 inches on both sides that just doesn't have teeth. And so when someone who's uneducated about these specific jewelers' saw blades watches me saw, they may think that I'm not actually using the whole length of the blade, but in actuality, I'm just staying where all of the teeth are. I just haven't felt like it's been worth it to like be a snotty-nosed brat and like make a stink about it. I just, say, oh, thanks so much for the input. I'll have to keep that in mind next time. And then every time I film myself with the soft frame, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to get another one of those comments.
All right, so this studio session went pretty well. I was aiming to get all of these cut out, and I am going to cut them out. But I'm just like gonna end the studio session vlog here. I want to start dumping the footage. And so, I just want to dump the footage and not have more that I've created. So actually I've already started here. I can even show you. Let me see if I can swing you around. See? She already started dumping the footage. So I pretty much have like one camera plugged in. I also have a micro SD card USB adapter thing, but I don't know where it is right now. It's probably actually like at my desk in my office at work, because a lot of times I'll bring in my computer and in the morning I'll start dumping it and I just have it running in the background while I'm working, and then like at lunchtime I'll switch out and dump the next 2 cards. So I've got one in a card adapter on the side here. It's gonna focus on my face no matter what. So anyways, but yeah, so there's the computer, and it's just running in the background while I'm gonna go back to the bench, and cut the rest of these things out. So, but look what came in the mail. It's my 0090 die that I ordered because I broke my 0090 die last Sunday, and so I ordered a new one so this would be here. So yeah. All right, signing off for the day. I love you. Thanks for tuning in and being interested in watching kind of like the long version of how this stuff happens in my studio. I love you. I love having the cameras on and feeling like everything is going to be used at a certain point. And I feel like the amount of motivation that having the cameras on gives me to like either keep going or to not get distracted, to stay on task. It really helps my productivity. And I love sharing it with you because not a lot of people seem to be interested in, the behind the scenes nitty gritty. So I'm glad that I have a reason to share, to do it so that I can share it with you. So I love you as always, you know that. And I'll see you in the next studio session update. Okay. Mwah. Sometimes like right after I'm done filming something, I'll think like, oh, what if I forgot to press record? It doesn't happen very often, but I had that moment right then when I was like, what if I just recorded that Patreon studio session update outro and like I have to do it again. But ever since I've gotten this camera with the, the screen that I can see myself as I'm filming myself, the amount of times that I've forgotten to press record like is substantially lower. I'm substantially better at catching and making sure that the camera is recording before I start doing anything, So that's it. Okay. Just wanted to put that last, probably out of focus little thing in there, but okay. Bye. I love you. This one goes out to all of you Ironclad crew members over there on Patreon. Thank you for sponsoring this video.